hands up those people who were in the presentation I gave earlier. Okay, a lot of you. Okay, so you know who I am. I'm Jill Morrison. I'm the manager of Spinal Injuries Association for North Queensland and Far North Queensland. And we got funded to take students both in Townsville and Cairns under two initiatives. So rural and remote was one initiative, and the other initiative was through Indigenous placements. So again, a lot of the information I'm going to say is the same. But there's new information as well. So you know who we are, or 80% of you know who we are, that we provide allied health services across the state, but for this project we were very lucky to be funded to support our students' placements in occupational therapy and physio in North Queensland and Far North Queensland. Again, this is a bit of a revision for those who are here. 80% of the clients that we're seeing in our allied health services have paraplegia and 20% have quadriplegia. To revisit some photos that some of you saw, often we're asked to assist clients to go back to what they always loved to do, and part of our role is to think outside the square, and that's why I love that talk so much this morning. And this is our clients getting back to doing what they love to do. Okay, so I'll leave this on a little bit more. One of the things that the Innovation Grant allowed us to do is we have 94 clients in Far North Queensland, and from an Indigenous perspective, each red triangle represents where our Indigenous clients are located. So 14 different locations, currently 21 clients who are either Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. And we were already servicing from Townsville those clients, and what this funding allowed us to do was to seek an office in Cairns and to relocate one of our OTs up there, and we've been wanting to do it, we just didn't have the funding to do it, and then to take student placements specifically up in Cairns to allow those students to go on our remote outreach visits that we were already doing, but we were doing it on roadshows from Townsville. And our clients, since we've been able to do that, are just getting much better service because we can see them a lot more often, and our students are absolutely loving going on those visits. Can I say it took us 6 months to find an accessible office we could afford? It's an absolute nightmare looking for a truly accessible office, and the renovations are just being finished this week to get it totally up to scratch. So that's a lesson in itself, isn't it, about accessibility. As you can see, clients Palm Island, Thursday Island, one of the things to remember is when you suffer a spinal cord injury, you have to go to Brisbane. There is no other inpatient spinal unit in Queensland, and imagine what it's like for our clients coming from Thursday Island down to Brisbane, and that can mean leaving your community for anything between 6 months and 2 years. And that has such an extraordinary impact, let alone the catastrophic impact of injury. So what we wanted to do was to allow our students to truly understand what it's like to be an OT, working with people in their community, helping them achieve what they want to achieve. And you can't do that from a hospital. You need to go back into those communities. Again, apologies if you heard the last talk, but basically the grant allowed us to increase the number of students. It allowed us to start training allied health practitioners in OT and physio up on spinal cord injury, because again, because most of the knowledge is in Brisbane, there aren't that many health practitioners who have a sound knowledge about spinal cord injury. So we undertook to, over the next few years, increase the number of students to try and contribute to that knowledge. And it allowed us to fund, for the first year anyway, our office in Cairns, but to set up a dedicated student area in Cairns, dedicated student areas in Townsville. So we're very grateful for that. And the board has agreed to undertake the liability after, after this year. Our students, we've had a very busy year. 48 students over 283 placement days for 3 OTs. So, you know, we're very proud of that. We'll probably do it a bit differently next year and cut out the number of first-year observational placement days, because it was a big burden without a lot of gain for our staff, actually. The third year and fourth year students, they were with us for 7 weeks or 10 weeks. They gained a lot more, we gained a lot more from that. Outreach, again, the sorts of things we do on outreach is equipment prescription and then the health preventative, as well as the checking about pressure injuries and continence management and lifestyle. We encourage our students to reflect on what they're doing and to write about it and to debrief with their supervisors. Just to go back to understanding why it's important for us to provide community allied health outreach to those 14 locations where our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander clients are, is, and I apologise, this statistic is fairly old, but it's still relevant. You know, we know that Indigenous population of Australia has a significantly reduced life expectancy, and unfortunately it's the same for individuals who sustain a spinal cord injury. That gap between non-Indigenous and Indigenous is similar in spinal cord injury. On average, currently in Queensland, 2 to 3 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders will sustain a spinal cord injury, and again they're sent to Brisbane, and that represents about 4% of the unit's yearly admissions. Some people thought that people from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander backgrounds may sustain the injury in a different way, and it doesn't bear out in the research. They sustain their injuries in the same ways, and that is motor vehicle accidents at the top, then falls, then motorbike accidents, and then diving into shallow water. This is an old study, but it was a very, very comprehensive study, and it sets the scene for why it's important for us to provide our services in remote, and why it's important for students to get that grounding in what it means to be a community allied health therapist. And unfortunately, in that study, and they looked over a number of years at all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander inpatients in the unit in Brisbane, a third who sustained their injury between the age of 15 and 24 were deceased within 10 years post-injury. And in fact, 78% of that cohort came from rural and remote Queensland and Northern Territory, our client base. And we know that the primary cause of early death post-spinal cord injury is septicemia, and it's totally preventable. You know, it's due to complications from pressure injuries, complications from urinary tract infections. So we needed our students to understand the context of the importance of going to visit people and start to be that first person to check on what's happening there. So we give our students this brief that, you know, what we want to do is provide culturally appropriate services and see if the intervention that we're providing takes into consideration family and carers' needs as well. And you don't know that until you're in that home to know how other people are travelling and what agencies we may need to refer them to. I'm going to tell you Lockie's story. So if you're in my first presentation, you got Jeff's story, which is a very different story. So if you've got a pen, write down the website, abovetherest.net.au. Lockie sustained his injury just before he went into Year 10, and post-Cyclone Larry, he went out swimming after the cyclone, and he was body surfing because there were quite a few good waves. Even though it was flat water after cyclone, there were good waves. And unknown to him, the cyclone had really moved the floor of the ocean around a lot. So he's body surfing, and the wave dumped him, and it dumped him onto a sandbar, and he sustained quadriplegia. So what you see there is Lockie in a power-assisted manual wheelchair. So he has very little movement in his arms, but he can move a little bit, and then the manual wheelchair kicks in with a motor to power assist. And the reason Lockie's photo is up there is because he's involved in our first-year students, physio students. He's very shy and very quiet, but he comes in and he talks to those first-year physio students about himself and about his life and about his family. And one of the stories he tells them is about when he was in the unit and how hard it was to be away from family. And there was a bloke in the bed next to him, and he noticed that the bloke in the bed next to him, who'd been there a lot longer than him, had started to become very negative. And what he noticed was the more negative this guy got, understandable, the more his visitors dropped off. And so he made the decision at the ripe old age of 15, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be hopeful because I need my family, I need my friends to come, hop in a plane and fly down and see me as often as they can. And he tells this to these very young, naive, first-year physio students. You need to be positive because people don't like being around negative people. And he said, so I only surround myself with positive people. And I just think what a lesson for an allied health professional. So what's Lockie doing? He's set up his own T-shirt design business, and so I'm doing a plug for him to say that he's designed the graphic above the rest, and if you go on his website you can buy one of his T-shirts. Okay, again, we're in the process of interviewing all our students and evaluating their experience as well as interviewing our 3 OTs, but one of the things that we're doing for those students who've gone on the road trips and they've gone to visit with our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander clients, or gone into remote communities, or got the car bogged with the OT, we're asking them about their experiences of that. And just a couple of quotes. Everyone is different, regardless of, this is one of our students, whether or not they're Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. Placement helped me to be culturally aware by respecting everyone's differences and understanding that circumstances change from one person to the next. For me, the most relevant revelation for working with Indigenous culture was understanding that the client's immediate family is heavily involved in decision making, so it's important to involve them and communicate with them directly rather than limiting your attention to the client by himself or herself. So this student didn't realise that, and I don't think they would have realised that had we not sent them out for that week and got that experience of realising, no, I have to talk to the family, not just to the client. And lastly, you don't really understand the full impact of a condition or a person's ability to cope with a situation until you see the reality for yourself. Okay. So this is just a little quirky thing that one of our OTs uses. Thank you.